My Bible upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barak Yahweh. Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Asherah. Nathalanawa. Hashabath. Bashalawam. Thawada. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, or the Most High, in the name of Christ, that gives to us the Sabbath and peace. Thank you, so be it. Zaha'ayim Ma'ad Asherayim Akkad, Psalm 121. Anya Harayim Mayanyam Ya O Haharim Mayan Yabawa Isaiah Yabawa Mayahawa Shai Shamayim Wa'arataza La'a Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala'a Yanawam Shashamaka Hana La'a Yanawam Wala'a Yayashan Shashuama Yasharella Yahweh Shamaya Yahweh Tazalia I'll Yad Yam Ya Yawamam Hashamash La'a Hakaya Wayarat La'a Balayala Yahweh Yashamaya Mako Ra Yashama Napasha Yahweh Yashama Hawalakya Wabawaya Ma'aitha Wa'ai Daiwalam Basham Yahawasha Thawada Aman.
Psalms 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills. From whence cometh my help? My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharella, Hail Israel. Shema Yasharella, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yasharella, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yasharella, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Tapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Haya, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwatha, Saba'ah, Ratazawanka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Ka, Bashemayim, Nathalanawa, Lakam, Yawum, Sa, Wasalakwanawa, Kabawathnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kabawathnawa, Wala'a, Habiyanawa, Abo, Salak, Habiyanawa, Oh, Nasayawan, Abo, Hawashinawa, Mara, Kaya, Laka, Amalakwa, Wa'ala, Wathaparath, La'aywalam, Aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner, therefore, pray, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debtors, we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'ashirah mataz wa the 10 Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpanya, La'ah, Thaisha, Laka, Paso, Wala'ah, Thaibadum, La'ah, Thalakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ath, Hayawum, Hashabath, Lakodashwa, Kabad, Abiakar, Wa Amakar, La'ah, the Ratazak, La'ah, the Na'ah, La'ah, the Ganah, La'ah, the Anah, Shakur, La'ah, the Kamad, Kol, Asherah, Lara'ayaka, Amen.
Exodus 20:2. I am the Lord thy God, which I brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold it guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and holiday. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Amen. Your Shabbat, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathan Lanawa, Par Yahagabin, Thawada Amun, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha'ala. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, or the Most High, in the name of Christ, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Madu, upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Hakadon, Rakuam, Abiyah, Wanara'ah, Aliyawan, Malak, Sho, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Wakol, Debayim, Kayayam, Wagum, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Arawanawa, Ahabnawa, Aplah, Yawaitazah, Yahweh Shai, Zakarnawa, Yahweh, Barataza 1, Aimka, Yasha'ala, Izarnawa, Banah, Wasa, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yum Yun, Aitha, Kayawamyum, Makwadam, Baba Kushah, Shalak, Mayaka'ala, Wahataz Wadat, Alahayim, La, Magunnawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnawa, Ba'akwar, Shalak, Haroka, Shon, Yahweh Shai, Lanawa, Walamadnawa, Rabim, Kakama, Thabawana, Wada'ith, Shal, Dabarka, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Thawada, From God, Wa'iwalam, Amun. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people, Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us, to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Hathawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, War, Lara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Koran, Ha'ayal, Lakwara, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Hashaman, Zayath, Lemashat, Yasha'Allah. Shabbat, be seated. All right. Shalom, peace to all the brothers and sisters that's watching on the live stream, listening on teleconference. Shalom is peace, and Ashar Shabbat, or happy Sabbath, to all our brothers and sisters that are keeping the Most High Sabbath day holy. This is Hayashar al-Kanash, which is Hebrew for the congregation of Israel. This is where we teach the Most High's word in truth, like it says in St. John 17:17. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. And also tell you that the truth is the law, right? So we go through these commandments. We go through the dietary laws, the ceremonial laws, moral, civil laws that the Most High had given to his servant Moses to give to the nation of the children of Israel, which subsequently those whose ancestors on their father's side of Negro, Native American, Seminole Indian, and also the Hispanics throughout Central and South America, throughout the Caribbean, right? On your father's side, going back at least 3 to 4 generations, then you would be of the ancestry, the royal lineage of the children of the nation of Israel, right? So it is our duty to follow the same agreement, the same covenant that the Most High had given to our ancestors during the time of Moses when we came out of Egypt, even today, that we still have to uphold the tradition, uphold our heritage, uphold the Most High in Christ by keeping his word, right? Christ said in John 14:15, if you love me, keep my commandments, right? And not so much to focus on the commandments, but we also operate in the spirit of Yahweh Shai, Mashiach, or in the English, Jesus Christ. So the example that he led, that he left us, the teachings that he gave, the edifications that he provided to those who was there walking with him, that's now still recorded in the Bible, This is something that we now have to go and read, like it says in Revelations 1 and 3, to go and read and keep those things that are written therein in order to gain our salvation, right? Like Christ said, salvation is for those same children that comes from that nation. Salvation is for the Jews. Salvation is for the northern kingdom, the southern kingdom, those 12 tribes, so-called Negroes, so-called Haitians, so-called Cubans, so-called Dominicans, so-called Puerto Ricans, so-called Mexicans. Everyone that you would see visually on the 12 tribe sign, from Brazil to Ecuador to Chile, right? That's scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. We're not just in America. The Most High scattered us throughout every nook and cranny in the earth because of our disobedience. So we're in Canada, we're in Europe, we're in the UK, Great Britain, we're in Africa still. Some of us in Australia. Some of us is even down in the Samoan Islands, the Tahiti, all those different places. We've been scattered abroad, right? So the Lord has now given us the platform, the plateau, where we can put this word out through venues like this, through YouTube, through venues like social media, through your telephone podcast, and then as well as going out and touching the people like Christ and the disciples did when they was on the earth. So again, it is high time to awake out of sleep, for us to come back to these commandments, for us to come back to the Most High through our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, or Yahushua in Hebrew. So what it is we do, we try to the best of our ability to rehearse these righteous acts, right? The laws that we read is just not for us just to read them. It tells you in St. John, and read it real quick, then we're going to get into today's Sabbath service lesson. Not St. John, James, the book of James, chapter 1 and 22. It says, but be doers of the word. So to be a doer means to apply, right? I mean, that you have to execute. You have to carry out the word that you are reading, right? That is meant for you. It says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only. You just can't read it. You just can't have someone dictate it to you or listening to it in a audio book or something like that and just hear it and it sounds good. But you also now have to apply it. That's where the challenge comes in. How can you apply and still stand up and face what the disciples went through, what Christ went through, what the ancient seers and men of the Most High and women of the Most High went through when they advocated for the Most High's truth and word, right? So it says, but be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. Meaning if you put on a front, you're not deceiving anybody else but your own selves, because the opportunity is going to be wasted. The opportunity is going to be missed. So you want to make sure that the information that you gather from the teachers of the Most High that are set up to be able to go and edify and provide understanding and wisdom to us, that you take heed to that and then you apply it. That way you can now take sure hold of the repentance, that grace, that mercy that has been given to us since the time that Christ died, and even before then, because some people think that mercy and grace was only during the time of Christ. He came and gave it for the whole nation, right? A blanket covering to remove us from the sacrificial laws. But the Most High had mercy on our nation in the past too. But it was now culminated. It was put on a high level with Christ when he died on the cross for the sins of the nation of Israel, who are his people, like it says in Matthew, the 1st and 2nd chapter. All right. So today we're going to be in the Old Testament, in the book of Joshua. We're going to be reading the 3rd and the 4th chapters. Right. This is now when you read the book of Joshua, the leader, Moses, had already passed on. He died. He now handed over the reins to his, I don't want to say his apprentice, but one who was second in command unto him, which was Joshua. And the Most High had it, the Most High had it where he now was going to gain favor and he was going to elevate him in the sight of the nation to now lead them into the promised land to go and conquer and take down the Hamitic nations that was in the land, but it wasn't for them, right? The Most High had them occupying the land temporarily, but that was not their land. That land, the whole earth was created by the Most High, and the Most High had given or promised to back Abraham, right? He said, seed would dwell in that land. So that's where we now see this taking place as we get into these chapters. It's not going to get into what we read, but it's going to be the beginnings of how the Most High was going to begin to lead Joshua and the children of Israel into the land to go and take down the former occupants or inhabitants of that land. All right, so let's get into Joshua, the 3rd chapter. My name is Kahan, or Priest Samak, which means support, and I will be reading today and presiding over today's Sabbath service lesson. All right, so this is Joshua. Kahan, want to read something before we start?
Yeah.
All right.
Deuteronomy 9:5. It says, not for thy righteousness or for the uprightness of thine heart dost thou go to possess their land, but for the wickedness of these nations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee, and that he may perform the word which the Lord sware unto thy father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Done.
Joshua to take the reign.
Yep.
So,
Con.
you know, Moses did not see the promised land.
Right.
But Joshua took the reign.
He saw it, but he would not step foot in it.
Yeah.
The Most High took him up on the mountain, showed him was able to show him, but he wasn't able to step foot into the land. So this is Joshua chapter 3, verse 1. It says, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. So they was on what we now know with the Jordan. When it talks about the Jordan, it's talking about the Jordan River, right? So they were in a region called Shittim. The 3 tribes had already occupied certain lands on the other side of Jordan. So now they're beginning to migrate over to go into the western portion of Israel, right? So they're on the east side. They're going to Jordan River. The Most High had it where it put the spirit in Joshua to say, now it's time to rise up. They got up early in the morning and they went and lodged there at the Jordan River, leaving Shittim, which is on the eastern side of what we now know today as portions of what Israel is. It says again, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host. So they traveled, lodged, pitched their tent, right? Because we were still, nomadic tribes at that time. We didn't have a homeland yet after wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. So we were accustomed to always taking our tents and then pitching them somewhere and being there for a period of time before we moved on. So after they pitched, they was there 3 days before the Most High had the officers now come through the host of the camp, right? It says, verse 3, and when they commanded the people, saying, when ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your power, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then shall ye remove from your place and go after, right? Or go after it. So now they're giving instruction after 3 days of them now resting, gathering up victuals and food and everything else. Now it's time that they now about to move again, right? So the sign was when they saw the Ark of the Covenant move, then they was going to move through and then go through the Jordan River. That was a sign. Once you see that happen. In the past, if you read scripture, you knew that the chariots was there. And the Most High used the chariots to now guide us through the wilderness. Now here it is. When Moses is gone, Joshua is now taking the reins. They're using the Ark of the Covenant to be our sign and our guide, right? So I'm going to read it again. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, when ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your power, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it, right? So now the ark of the covenant was something that was very, very holy unto the children of Israel, right? The Most High gave us instruction on how to build what would then be the piece of, I want to call it contraption, but something, a holy piece of wood and everything around it that was going to be very symbolic as a conduit between how the Most High would come and interact with the children of Israel by way of the high priest, right? So let's go to Exodus 25. Exodus, the 25th chapter, and the 10th verse. Yahweh Kanana, if you can read that. Exodus 25 and 10.
Exodus 25 and 10. And they shall make an ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half shall be the length thereof, and a cubit and a half the breadth thereof, and a cubit and a half the height thereof.
Come on.
Verse 11. And thou shalt overlay it with pure gold within and without shalt thou overlay it, and shalt make upon it a crown of gold round about.
Mm-hmm.
And thou shalt cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them in the 4 corners thereof, and 2 rings shall be in the one side of it, and 2 rings in the other side of it. And thou shalt make staves of shittim wood, and overlay them with gold. And thou shalt put the staves into the rings by the sides of the ark, that the ark may be borne with them. The staves shall be in the rings of the ark, they shall not be taken from it. And thou shalt put into the ark the testimony which I shall give thee. And thou shalt make a mercy seat of pure gold, 2 cubits and a half shall be the length thereof, and a cubit and a half the breadth thereof. And thou shalt make 2 cherubims of gold of beaten work, shalt thou make them in the 2 ends of the mercy seat, and make 1 cherub on the one end, and the other cherub on the other end, even of the mercy seat shall he make the cherubims on the 2 ends thereof.
Come on.
And the cherubims shall stretch forth their wings on high, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and their faces shall look one to another. Toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubims be.
So the Most High is very detailed in how he now created this ark that was supposed to be placed in what we now know. We're going to go back. We're not done. The holiest of the holies, right? So in it, you see how even with the cherubims, which are these celestial beings, which I have the picture up, how the Lord said that the wings should go up on high and that their faces should be towards each other, facing the mercy seat. So you'll see a lot of different imaginative pieces of artwork like what we see here to replicate or try to duplicate or emulate what is described here. But what they created or crafted is not exactly like what we see here in the scriptures or anything that you find on YouTube, but it's almost similar in thought based on how the scripture describes it, right? Read.
Verse 21.
Mm-hmm.
And thou shalt put the mercy seat above upon the ark, and in the ark thou shalt put the testimony that I shall give thee.
Mm-hmm.
And there I will meet with thee, and I will commune with thee from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubims which are upon the ark of the testimony of all things which I will give thee in commandment unto the children of Israel.
Right. So as you see the picture here now, as it just shows or displays how on a different angle, you got all the descriptions of what we just read in Exodus. And then the Most High says that he's going to come and meet with thee in between or above the mercy seat from between the two cherubims. So in this picture here, so let me see if I don't think it's being showed. Give me 1 second. So here is showing where you have what looks like, remember when we read in Exodus when Moses went and saw the burning bush and the Most High spoke to Moses from the burning bush, right? It was like a fire or a flame. So they kind of have this imagery of something similar above the mercy seat where it's like a fiery thing where the Most High could come and speak to you from above the mercy seat, right? This was something that, you know, the Lord had where either during the time when the priest went into the Holy of the Holies, he would be on a mercy seat and would commune with the high priest from within the Holiest of Holies. So there's a lot of different even things that now the priest had to follow in order to interact with the mercy seat, with the Ark of the Covenant, and not just do anything that they wanted. The Most High gave specific instruction on what to do with this mercy seat. Then we also see that the Most High said that he was going to give instruction on what needed to go in it, which we now know he said was going to be the testimony. So now with the testimony also being there, you see that there's certain things that also accompany from this display. Go to the book of Hebrews, the 9th chapter. Hebrews, the 9th chapter. And the 3rd verse. Hebrews 9:3. So Hebrews 9:3, it says, and after the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all. So within the tabernacle, you had all the menorah and everything set up, the table with the showbread on it. But then you had a second area within the tabernacle, which was called the holiest of holy, right? It says, and in there, it says, verse 4, which had the golden censer and the Ark of the Covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, which we see depicted here. Then it says, and Aaron's rod that budded, the same rod that was used during the time of our exodus from the Egyptians when the Most High had Moses and Aaron and go into Pharaoh and drop down the rod, right? So during that time, Aaron had his rod and the Lord had it where it budded or sprouted different things on it. That is inside of the Ark of the Covenant. Then it says, and the tables of the covenant, or the tables of the agreement, which was the law, right? The scriptures say that the Most High, with the finger of the Lord, wrote those 10 on the tablets, but then he gave approximately 600 more other commandments that the nation of Israel agreed to. But this now holds testimony outside of just the testimony itself, because this was now something that the Most High had as one of our most holiest possessions, that had the tablets written by the finger of the Most High, manna that was used to feed the children of Israel thousands of years ago, and Aaron's rod that budded that was used around the time of us coming out of our Exodus. So just like you have Raiders of the Lost Ark, all these different people who want to go and try to claim that they have found the Ark. The Egyptians or Cush have said that they found the Ark. These people say they found the Ark and they have the Ark. It's all lies. Let's go to 2 Maccabees, the 2nd chapter.
Yeah, so I was going to read Exodus 25:9. It says, Exodus 25:9, it says, according to all that I shewed thee after the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all the instruments thereof, even so shall ye make it. So the Most High showed Moses certain way to do certain things, certain description, certain, dimensions and so on and so forth are in the scriptures, but it's something else that the Most High showed Moses personally,
right,
how to do it. That man can go out there and make the exact thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this is 2 Maccabees, the 2nd chapter. I'm going to start from verse 1 and read down. Right. 2 Maccabees chapter 1. Sorry, 2 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 1. 2 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 1. It says, it also found in the records that Jeremy the prophet commanded that they were carried away to take of the fire as it had been signified, and how that the prophet, having given them the law, charged them not to forget the commandments of the Lord, and that they should not err in their minds where they see images of silver and gold with their ornaments. And with other such speeches exhorted he them that the law should not depart from their hearts, meaning when you now continue to go on throughout your generations, that you don't be fooled or deceived by these other different false images and gods that's made of wood, stone, steel, silver, gold, whatever it may be, that you always keep the Most High's commandments in your heart. Verse 4, it was also contained in the same writing that the prophet, being warned of God, commanded the tabernacle and the ark to go with him. And he went forth into the mountain where Moses climbed up and saw the heritage of God. Now, what mountain was it that Moses climbed up and saw the heritage of God? Hold that. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 34 and verse 1, right? So this is giving you a location of where Jeremy or Jeremiah the prophet went with the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle, right? It says, Deuteronomy 34 and 1, and Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land of Gilead unto Dan, right? So again, this is where Moses saw the land in Mount Nebo into Pisgah. So that's where he's at. So what was being described here during the time of the Maccabees through the Spirit of the Most High, back here at verse 4, it says, it was also contained in the same writing that the prophet, being warned of God, commanded the tabernacle and the ark to go with him as he went forth into the mountain where Moses climbed up and saw the heritage of God, or the land of the Most High. Verse 5, and when Jeremy came thither, he found an hollow cave wherein he laid the tabernacle and the ark and the altar of incense, and so stopped the door. So he closed up where it was that he found a hollow cave to lay them in, right? Sealed it, right? So that what? That no one would be able to find this. For what purpose? It says, verse 6, and some of those that followed him came to mark the way, but they could not find it. So you have people who followed him to see where he was going to go and place this holy vessel, right? But they lost the way. They couldn't find out where he went. And then because he now closed it up and it's well hidden, they don't know where it's at, right? It says, now, man did this. The Most High had Jeremy do this. But now the Most High is about to take control, right? It says, verse 7, which when Jeremy perceived, he blamed them, saying, as for that place, it shall be unknown until the time that God gather his people again together and receive them unto mercy. Then shall the Lord show them these things, and the glory of the Lord shall appear, and the cloud also, as it was shown unto Moses, and as when Solomon desired that the place might be honorably sanctified, right? So it shows you that now when the Ark of the Covenant is revealed, certain things is going to happen, right? The children of Israel are going to be delivered, right? then not only are the children of Israel going to be delivered, the glory of the Most High is going to appear. The salvation of the Lord is going to appear, which is Yahushua and the rest of the angels. Because it even specifically says, and the cloud also. Remember, during the time of Moses, the cloud or the chariot of the Most High, which we now call a so-called UFO, but these are the chariots or the transportation of angels. They were there during the time of our Exodus coming out of Egypt. Then it also says, and even so, and as when Solomon desired that the place might be honorably sanctified. So when Solomon dedicated the temple to the Most High, the chariot was there as well, right? So now here it is that these things have to happen according to the Most High's word. We haven't seen any chariots come around. We haven't seen the Most High send the angels and Christ back yet. We haven't seen the children of Israel being delivered. So that's a false flag for any people, historians, archaeologists claiming that the Ark of the Covenant is behind some building or in some museum or in some wall or what have you. No, it's still in Mount Nebo, well hidden until these prophecies come to pass, right? That's what the Most High says in his word, thus saith the Lord, right? So now, pertaining to the Ark of the Covenant, let's go back to Joshua 3. So back in Joshua, the 3rd chapter, and verse 3 again, it says, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your power, and the Levites, so like, and the priests, the Levites bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it, meaning you're going to follow it, right? Verse 4, yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Come not near unto it, that ye may know the way by which ye must go, for ye have not passed this way heretofore. So now it says, let the priest with the Ark of the Covenant go ahead of you about a half a mile, right? Somewhere in the space of about a half a mile. Let it go in front of you first, and then let them guide your way, because you've never been this way before. I'm about to lead you or lead them into where you need to go, right? So stand back and don't come near unto it. A lot of times I always harp on instruction, 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 commandment, 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 right? The Most High is about paying attention to detail in his instruction. So if he said don't come near it, you can't walk up on the priest and say, hold on, which way, and ask questions. No, you just adhere to the information that the Most High is now about to give the people by way of Joshua. Verse 5, and Joshua said unto the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you, right? So now when the Lord is about to now do this thing, the Most High now goes to Joshua and says, sanctify the people. And Joshua gives that word to the people. Now they have to get themselves right. Now have to listen and follow and get all their attention to the Most High, because he's about to do something for them, right? Go to Leviticus, the 20th chapter. Leviticus 20:7. So Leviticus 20:7 says, sanctify yourselves, therefore, and be ye holy, for I am the Lord your power, right? So when it's talking about sanctify yourselves, that means you now have to get yourselves according to the Most High's truth. Make yourselves holy, separate whatever uncleanness, whatever things that you have going on that's not according to the Most High's word. You got to get that out of there. And now everybody was going to be each one's caregiver, brother, overseer, and making sure that everybody's in their right space, in their right mind, doing the right thing, because the Most High is about to now perform something for the children of Israel. So this is now how we turn our attention back to the Lord. When we sanctify ourselves, we sanctify ourselves with the word of the Most High, to attend to the word of the Most High. That's what happens, how you separate yourselves from the world. They'll tell you, the world will tell you how you should dress, how you should eat, what you should celebrate, what you should, all that is what the world do. Now, when you come to the Most High, you now have to attend to his instruction, right? You now have to come and sanctify or cleanse or baptize yourself according to his will. You can't have any rebels. You can't have anybody wanting to do their own thing. Why we gotta go and stand behind? Why I gotta stand back a half a mile? Why I can't stand back a third of a mile? No, the Most High said 2,000 cubits, which is that. Everybody has to be on board. That's how we now make sure that everything is about to happen according to plan. You don't want to have somebody deviating and it caused disruption, and the Most High now jacks everybody up because you had one imbecile or one rebellious person not wanting to follow what the Most High standard was. All right. So I read Leviticus 20:7. You could write down Numbers, the 20th chapter, I believe. You read that chapter, right? That's a point of reference. Right. Numbers, the 20th chapter. I'm not going to read it, but just write that down in your notes as it pertains to the same thing where the Most High had Moses needing to go and sanctify the children of Israel to draw them to the Lord. And Moses didn't do that. The Most High said Moses didn't sanctify him, right? He didn't follow all the instructions, give everything, give all the praise, everything to the Most High. And the Most High was upset and angry with Moses and caused him not to enter into the land because of that sin, right? Now, this is the same thing now that's being put upon Joshua, and we're going to see how Joshua handles with the instruction. And let's go back to Joshua 3. Joshua, the 3rd chapter, and we have verse 6 now. And Joshua spake unto the priest, saying, take up the ark of the covenant and pass over before the people. And they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. The Lord said unto Joshua, this day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. So now the Most High, because the transition happened, now the Lord had to elevate Joshua to being that figure. It says that Moses was like king amongst us when he was in the earth. So Joshua now is going to have to also be viewed as that type leader for the nation. The Most High was going to elevate him in that capacity. The Lord can lift up anybody whom he chooses, right? Go to 1 Chronicles real quick. Most High said the same thing to King Solomon. 1 Chronicles chapter 29. First Chronicles chapter 29, verse 25. It says, and the Lord magnified Solomon exceedingly in the sight of all Israel, and bestowed upon him such royal majesty as had not been on any king before him in Israel. Right? So it said that David was a man after his own heart, but the Most High had not magnified David like how he magnified Solomon, right? He gave him a royal majesty that no one had ever seen before, right? The Lord lifted him up. He can choose to do that to whom he chooses to do that for, right? So now, as we see with certain righteous men, the Lord lifts them up above all the rest and magnified them, where you got certain judges, or / saviors, as it was mentioned in the Old Testament during the time of Judges. They were saviors. The Lord will raise them up, and the people will rally behind them and look to them to be the leader. Same thing during the time of the Maccabees, where Mattathias was that leader, and then it became Judas, and then it became Jonathan, then it became Simon. They were all raised up, and the Most High used them as vessels to go and lead the nation. So the same thing now is being done with Joshua within Israel. So let's go back. Joshua 3, and we have verse 8 now. It says, and thou shalt command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when ye are come to the brink of the water of Jordan, ye shall stand still in Jordan. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, come hither and hear ye the words of the Lord your power. So now the instruction was, when they come and they march about a half a mile ahead, they're going to come to the Jordan River and stand right at the edge. Right? And then, hold on, let me now go and give instruction to the children of Israel and let them know what's about to happen. Verse 9, and Joshua said unto the children of Israel, come hither and hear the words of the Lord your power. And Joshua said, hereby ye shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Hivites and the Perizzites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Jebusites, right? So now these were all the Hamitic, or the children or the people from Ham, Noah's 3 sons. One of them was named Ham. They had a whole nation of people, or nations of people, that came out of his lineage that are not the same as the nation of Israel that came out of the line of Shem. That's what they tell us today, that we are the same people as the native indigenous so-called Africans, because that's not their real name. The biblical names are what we're reading right now here today, right? So now this was a promise that was given to the children of Israel, that we would inhabit these lands going back to Abraham. But now there's something that's important that we got to pay attention to. Go back to Genesis, the 15th chapter. Genesis, the 15th chapter and the 18th verse. All right. Y'all can if you can read that.
Genesis 15, verse 18. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the river. Oh, it says, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Right. So this was the land that was promised to the children of Israel, right?
It says from the land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, right? So this is what we look at and see the land of Israel as today, right? When you look on the screen, this is what we see, the children of Israel. We think that this is our land, which it is, right? But this is not what we're reading here in Genesis 15:18, right? It says from the great river of Egypt, which is the Nile, unto the great river Euphrates, which is off the screen, right? We don't even see that river. But now when you look at it according to what the scripture says, this is what we should be still seeing, right? Give me 1 second. Let me bring this up. So it should look like this, according to what we just read. Here is, according over here, the great Nile River that's in Egypt, right? Because it just said from the river of Egypt. So it's within Egypt. All the way over here to the river Euphrates that we see right now is up, going all the way through Syria down through Iraq. That is supposed to be all the land to the seed of Abraham given. Not just that little piece that we see today that's of Israel. Remember, Esau divides up lands and does certain different things, but that's not what the Most High just told Abraham here that was going to be given to his seed. And this is an agreement that the Most High made, right? Let me get another one. Give me 1 second. Let me show another view. So this is how it would look also when you start looking at, if you look at the wholeness of the Nile River and the wholeness of the Euphrates River, what lands that this will be going through, right? It's just not that little section up there. We got that section you know, during the times of when we first got plots. But the Most High said that it was going to go all the way from the river of the Egyptians to the Euphrates. That's a large landmass that's supposed to be given to the children of Israel that we still now have yet to come back to. When we get back to our homeland, this is going to be fulfilled, the wholeness of what we see from what it says in Genesis 15:18, right? Then it says, as I'm reading down, verse 19, the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Commodites or Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites. These were all who were dwelling in the land during the time when the Most High told Abraham that he would give his seed that land, right? But today, again, going back today, this is what we see, right? This is what we know as being the land of Israel. And that's just not the land. We still have to go down into this region here, go all the way over here, and then go off the screen to where you see the land or the river of Euphrates, right? So we got to put that in perspective. So sometimes when we're talking about, you know, Israel and where Israel's or the land of our ancestry or the promised land really is going to be portions of what we know to be Africa, which is in Egypt. It's going to go and stretch across all the way over there to the areas through Saudi Arabia to Iraq, because that's where the Euphrates is going over towards. All right. But that's going to all be ours in the time to come in the future. All right. So now let's go back to Joshua, the 3rd chapter, and now the 11th verse. It says, behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passes over before you into the Jordan, meaning into the actual river. It says, now therefore take ye 12 men out of the tribes of Israel, out of every tribe a man. So now before this happens, the Lord says, go and take one man out of each of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, right? And mark them and set them to the side, right? It says, and it shall come to pass as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that hear the ark or that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand up on heap, right? So now the Lord has it where the same thing that happened during the time of the Exodus coming out of Egypt, how he departed the Red Sea, and the Red Sea had the water stand up on high. The same thing now is going to happen during the time of Joshua with the children of Israel now going into the promised land, right? The waters will stand up on a heap, right? So remember where we are geographically. We're coming from the east side of what we now know on the east side of the Jordan River, now crossing into the Jordan River, and then that would now stand up on a heap. So geographically, we know where we're at or what we're talking about, right? So I'm going to read on. I'll read that again. It says, verse 13, and it shall come to pass as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand up on a heap. Verse 14, and it came to pass when the people removed from their tents to pass over Jordan, and the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people. It says, and as they that bear the ark were come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for the Jordan overfloweth all his banks the time of harvest, right? So now this is giving you a time period before it even gives you the clarity later on. It says the Jordan River at this time, when the priests went to go and put their foot in the banks, the water was already overflowing because of the harvest, right? What harvest would this be? Whole list, jump to give me 1 second, because it's going to give you insight. It's going to say the time and month. Give me 1 second here. So go to Joshua chapter 4. We're jumping ahead. Go to the 4th chapter and the 19th verse. I'm going to read this, but to put this into perspective of what we're reading here. So it says, Joshua 4:19, and the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the 1st month and encamped in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. So now here it is, the children of Israel, after they come out, it's the 1st month, but the 10th day. So what harvest season happens around the 1st month of the year? How holy day happens around the 1st month of the year? The Passover. So what harvest season happens during the Passover? The barley, right? The barley is the harvest that happens around the 1st month of the year. So as we're reading this in Joshua 3:15, and it says, and as they that bear the ark would come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark would dip in the brim of the water, for the Jordan overfloweth all his banks all the time of harvest. So this harvest, the Jordan River banks rose up higher than it is normally during the harvest season, right? Go to 1 Chronicles chapter 12. First Chronicles chapter 12. And 14. The First Chronicles chapter 12, verse 14 says, these were of the sons of Gad, captains of the host. One of the least was over 100, and the greatest over 1,000. Verse 15. These are they that went over Jordan in the 1st month, when it had overflown all his banks, and they put to flight all of them of the valleys, both toward the east and toward the west. So it's known within Israel that during the 1st month, the barley harvest season, the rivers rise up and it overflows, starts to come into certain areas where it's not normally that way, right? So now let's go back to Joshua 3:15 again. It says, and as they that bear the ark would come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for the Jordan overfloweth all his banks all the time of harvest, that the waters came down from above. So now, as we shown the map earlier of the Jordan River going all the way to the north portion, that water comes down, it's flowing downhill, right? So now as it's flowing downhill, the Most High is now going to stop the waters so that it can't come back. It's not going to build a wall, right? It says that the waters which came down from above stood up and rose up and heaped very far from the city Adam that is beside Zaratan, and those that came down toward the sea of the plain. Even the salt sea failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho. So now around the area where you have Jericho, you also have a place called the city Adam, right? Because our writers of the Bible knew that the place where the Most High planted Adam was in the land that we now know of as Israel, not down in Ethiopia or somewhere further south. It was around in this region, so much so that there was a city still named after Adam there, right? So I'm gonna read that again. And the water which came down from above stood up and rose up and heaped very far from the city Adam that is beside Zaratan, and those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho. So let me see if I can get a visual. So let me blow this up a bit. So Israel, their migration is right around in this area here, right? This is what we're talking about, right? When you read it, this place called Zaratan, it's called 3 different names in the Old Testament, but it's all the same when you look it up, right? It says it's south of Jezreel in this region, right? So this is the area that now when the river is being stopped, it's now being stopped a far way back. If you see the arrow, a far way back to where a city now is known as being Adam here, right? And then if you look toward the bottom, you see what is called the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the same thing as the Salt Sea. Nothing lives in this area. That's why it's called dead. No fish, no animals, no anything. It's just full of high volume salt, right? You go into the history and the storyline, they'll say, well, people will look at that this was around the time of Lot's Sodom and Gomorrah because of so much salt level that's in that area that came down from that time. But that's not the focus here. The focus is that when this area, the wall happened, the river stopped where no water was coming down into the Salt Sea. That's what we're reading here, right? It cut off that, right? So all the water back then, the majority of the water that came into the Salt Sea came from the Dead Sea. I'm sorry, from the Jordan River. But now once that got stopped up, there was no more water filling or going into the Salt Sea. Esau today has now channeled some of the water that comes from the Jordan River to go to different areas because they know that the Dead Sea has no life in it, right? They say that it can provide that water that comes from the Salt Sea. You see sometimes in the mall, they'll be selling all their different oils and lotions and things. They say it comes from the Salt Sea because the salt, that the minerals that's in that area is supposed to be very good for your skin, helps you cleanse your skin. Sometimes you more this is because it's from this region. But Esau has now limited the water that's coming to the Dead Sea to go in other places to go and water different other cities, right? That's what they do today. So when you look on the map and you go through a time lapse, you'll see that the Salt Sea, the Dead Sea, is beginning to shrink up, right? Because they're now not allowing as much water to come into that area. But what we're focusing on is right around in this area is where the children of Israel are now beginning to cross over into the eastern part or the western parts of the western part of what we know to be Israel, right? So I'm gonna read that again. Verse 16, that the waters which came down from above stood and rose up on heap very far from the city Adam, that is beside Zaratan, and those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the Salt Sea, failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho, right? So here is Jericho right here, right? So they're actually down in this area, not even this far up, because we're going to read later on that they're going to come and camp in Gilgal. And here is Jericho down here. So they're coming in this area, and all this is shut down from the wall going back all the way back to an area known as the city Adam, near another place called Zaratan, showing you how far back the wall was. So imagine the people that was living in that area, that region, when they came and they looked at the Jordan River, they saw a wall of water going back very far, right? So now, let's go back. So it says, verse 17, and the priest that bare the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan. And all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over Jordan, right? So now this is now the beginnings of our migration into the promised land that was still being inhabited by Hamitic people, right? So in the artwork, because we know that people are not representative of what the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel are, but this kind of gives you a very bastardized depiction of what was being going on, how the priests were separated and no one was supposed to come near them as the children of Israel now pass through on high ground to the side of the river, right? I'll give you another one. All right. So here it is, a little different. I don't believe they were that close to the priest either. So here it is, the wall, and this wall went back very high when a monsoon, a tide wave, and how high the tidal wave is, and it builds a wall, but it's so high that it goes all the way back, and it's just now holding its position. So now here it is that the children of Israel would be now all walking on dry land as the priests are standing on dry land with the Ark of the Covenant, and they cross over onto the other side, right? So now let's go back. So I'm gonna read verse 16 again, and the waters, so like verse 17 again, and the priest that bare the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan, and all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over Jordan. So not to forget that the Most High instructed Joshua to make sure that the 12 men were taken out, right? 12 each was taken out, and they were going to do a specific thing, right? So we're going to keep going because this is not too long. We're going to go right through Joshua, the 4th chapter. So Joshua 4:1, it says, and it came to pass when all the people were clean passed over Jordan, that the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, take ye out 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe of man, and command ye them, saying, take you hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and ye shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where ye shall lodge this night. So now as the 12 men is going through, each one of those men have to go and take up a stone, one for each one of the tribes of the nation of Israel, right? And then go and place it in the place that they were going to lodge that night once they got over or passed over the Jordan River, right? Read that again, verse 3. And commanded ye them, saying, take ye hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and ye shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where ye shall lodge this night. Then Joshua called the 12 men, whom he had prepared of the children of Israel, out of every tribe of man. And Joshua said unto them, pass over before the ark of the Lord your power into the midst of Jordan, and take ye up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what mean ye by these stones? Right? So now it's going to be a memorial set up. And then your children, your children's children, when they ask the question, what do these stones mean that's sitting up here in this place? Verse 7, then ye shall answer them that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over Jordan, the waters of Jordan were cut off. And these stones shall be for a memorial unto the children of Israel forever, right? So these 12 stones were supposed to be laid as a memorial, as a symbolic sign that this happened during Joshua's time, right? So when you Google and you go online, you'll see various different pictures of stones on top of each other. To say which one is the exact one, I can't tell you right now. You can Google it on your off time or as you're watching this and seeing what they have as being set up. But it's something interesting outside of what these 12 men were going to do by setting this up in a place that they were going to lodge. Something else was about to be given instruction. Verse 8, and the children of Israel did so as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of Jordan, as the Lord spake unto Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them unto the place where they lodged, and laid them there. So and laid them down there, right? So the place, as you'll read later on, where they were going to lodge would be in Gilgal, right? We're going to read that a little bit later. Verse 9, And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests which bear the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there unto this day. So you got two sets of stones, one that was going to be in Gilgal on the other side of the Jordan River, and then other 12 that are in the midst of the Jordan River, right? So I know already some archaeologists, right? They've already gone the same thing they did to the Red Sea. They've already gone down to the bottom of the Jordan River to go and find out, seek out these 12 stones, right? They probably have pictures, probably 12 stones and them up somewhere, right? Hence why Esau has movie The Raiders of the Lost Ark, because that's what they like to do, raid and pillage, right? Why wouldn't you think that Esau would want to go and take these holy symbolic stones that have been left as a memorial for his power? Of course, they will want to remove them and take them and put them somewhere, right? That's the way Esau thinks. But I'm going to read that again. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests which bear the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there unto this day. So at the time when Ezra, the prophet, was rewriting the scriptures, because if you remember, you read in 2nd Ezra, the book of the law was destroyed, right? And everything up until that time was burned with fire and destroyed coming out of the Babylonian captivity. The Most High had Ezra, the prophet, go and rewrite the scriptures so that those that came after him would still have the records for that period. So now as Ezra is writing them, this is what was still there at the time when we were in the Persian and Medes captivity. It was still there unto that day. Is it still there today? That's speculation. Again, it could still be there, or Esau would have went and read the scriptures and went and found it and put it somewhere. But the Ark of the Covenant, we know the Most High said that that is not going to be found nor removed nor touched until he sends back Yahushua and the angels and redeems Israel from their captivity, right? Verse 10, for the priests which bear the ark stood in the midst of Jordan until everything was finished, that the Lord commanded Joshua to speak unto the people according to all that Moses commanded Joshua, and the people hasted and passed over, right? So they didn't move until everything was complete. The 12 men got the stones. They all went on to the other side. Joshua set up the stones in the midst, in the place where the priests themselves stood, to mark the place where the men stood with the Ark of the Covenant that caused the waters to stand up on high at that time, right? Verse 11, and it came to pass when all the people were clean passed over, the ark of the Lord passed over, and the priests in the presence of the people. When the last person, including Joshua and everyone, went over, then the priests and the Ark of the Covenant followed, and they would have to stay about a space half mile away from the Ark of the Covenant, as was instructed by the Most High. Verse 12. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and of the half tribe of Manasseh passed over armed before the children of Israel, as Moses spake unto them. About 40,000 prepared for war passed over before the Lord unto battle to the plains of Jericho, right? So if you remember, we go back in the history. Let's go back to Numbers 32. Numbers 32. And 28. Y'all can if you can read that. Numbers 32 and 28.
Numbers chapter 32, verse 28. So concerning them, Moses commanded Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the chief fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel.
Keep reading.
And Moses said unto them, if the children of Gad and the children of Reuben will pass with you over Jordan, every man armed to battle before the Lord, and the land shall be subdued before you, then ye shall give them the land of Gilead for possession. Verse 30. But if they will not pass over with you armed, they shall have possession among you in the land of Canaan. Children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, as the Lord hath said unto thy servants, so will we do. We will pass over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, that the possession of our inheritance of this side Jordan may be ours.
Right. So as we look on the map here, right, this is this side of Jordan, or the east side of the Jordan River. The Most High had given half the Manasseh area, that area, and then Reuben this area, right? But in order to fulfill that, the whole 12 tribes would be able to receive the fullness of the promise at that time, they couldn't just stay back with their land and their wives and their children. They made an agreement that they would send what we're reading there, 40,000 armed men, soldiers, to come and help the rest of their brethren fight against the other Hamitic nations. So you see now, when you look at that, you say to yourself, dag, man, Manasseh got a lot of land, right? Manasseh, the so-called Cubans, have a lot of land in conjunction with the rest of the tribes of Israel. But again, as I look at this and what we read earlier, what is really the land of Israel goes far more beyond this. So when we come back during the time of Yahushua and we're being put back into our land, the presumption will be that all the way over to the Nile River, all the way over to the Euphrates, the seed of Abraham would own that. And then the tribes would now have ownership of those regions and lands. But right now, this right here is where we're at, right? We're talking about, we're right in this area where you see me circling that these are now have come over through the Jordan River, right? Right here by Gilgal, right? So now let's go back to Joshua 4 and 13 again. It says, and about 40,000 prepared for war passed over before the Lord unto battle to the plains of Jericho, based on what we just read. And that on that day, the Lord magnified Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him as they feared Moses all the days of his life. So when the Lord allowed that to happen, the same thing that happened when Moses led the children of Israel through the Red Sea, and now he's leading us through the Jordan River, they had already seen the passing of the baton from Moses to Joshua. Now, by seeing that the Most High has whipped Joshua, it magnified him on a higher level, right? It took him on a higher level where the children of Israel feared him all the days of his life. There was never not a time where the nation of Israel respected Joshua as their leader and as their intermediary between the Most High and them, like Moses was. Verse 15, and the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, command the priests that they bear the ark of the testimony, that they come up out of Jordan. So as Joshua came over, now he's going to command the priests, it's time for y'all to come on, right? Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, come ye up out of Jordan. And it came to pass, when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord were come up out of the midst of Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up unto the dry land, that the waters of Jordan returned unto their place and flowed over all its banks as they did before. So as soon as that last priest's foot came up out of the water now came right back to its normal, and it proceeded to go now and fill all the plains of the Jordan River, to raise over the banks because of the harvest, and then to fill down into the Dead Sea, the Salt Sea. Verse 19, and the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and encamped in Gilgal, in the east border of Jericho, right? So again, when you look at the geographic location, right, we just saw, and I had the map of where Gilgal was in conjunction with the Red Sea. I'm sorry, in conjunction with the Jordan River, in conjunction where we was talking about a city named Adam, right? Because Adam was in that region that the children of Israel just crossed over into that land, right? Verse 20. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, did Joshua pitch in Gilgal. So in that city, in that location called Gilgal, there should still be 12 stones. The operative word should be, right? Verse 21, and he spake unto the children of Israel, saying, when your children shall ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what mean these stones? Then ye shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your power dried up the waters of Jordan from before you until you were passed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up from before us until we were gone over, that all the people of the earth might know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that ye might fear the Lord your power forever. So the Lord does these things and keeps it as a memorial to show forth his power, because things are written. Sometimes people don't believe it. They need a sign. They need to see something. And the Most High, knowing that, for some of our people, not just the nations, even within Israel, that they can have something they can go back and say, oh, look, there it is right there. That's what was written in the Bible. So the Most High has to be true. Oh, look, there is the Ark of Noah on Mount Ararat. And it's according to the same dimensions that was written in the scriptures. Most High is true. Oh, look, we can go down and see the fossilized chariots of the Egyptians at the bottom of the Red Sea to know that these things was true. Oh, look, we can see the different tunnels and conduits that was built around these different times of the kings that was thousands of years ago that is still in existence today, and people are going and looking at it. Even some of the kingdoms of Esau and Edom that the Most High had documented in the scriptures, they're still standing today. You still have people going over to the Middle East and exploring and seeing these things, right? So this is to show that the Most High's word is true, and that the Most High's power is the most that will ever see in existence. So the Lord has now left that for the children so that they can read and then go and see it standing still and say, oh, okay, and have confirmation of heart that the Most High is, right? That he is Yahweh, right? All right. So that ends Joshua chapter 3 and Joshua chapter 4. Now, those were two chapters, but sometimes even in those chapters, we learn, hopefully you learn some things as it pertains to the geography of where we were. We learned about the real promised land that the Most High had given to Abraham that's still now to be fulfilled, especially when we get back over to the Middle East. And we learned that certain things that was described is still kept in place, still kept intact, that the Most High's testimony is still hidden until we receive our salvation. You could further prove those things, that the real people of Israel have not been redeemed back into their land yet, because the Ark of the Covenant was supposed to resurface. The Savior was supposed to have returned. We were going to see the chariots helping guide the children of Israel like it did during the time of Egypt. Those things haven't happened yet. So the real children of Israel still are being raised up today. The prophecy still has not been fulfilled yet, right? So now, what happens when you have some gainsayers and naysayers? Romans, the 3rd chapter. Because you're always going to have someone come up and say, oh, no, I heard them say this, and that's not actually what it is. See, they reading fables and they saying these things, and they don't have real true history. They don't really know the Bible, or they don't know real archaeology. Romans chapter 3, verse 3. It says, for what if some did not believe? What if they didn't believe that that area is where Adam was placed? What if they don't believe that Joshua really walked through the Jordan River and it stood up on high? Or Moses went through the Red Sea with the children of Israel, and it stood up on high. Or during the time of Elisha and Elisha, that the Most High had the Jordan River stand up on high during their time. What if some don't believe, like Penn and Teller, when they have their little skits and shows, and they try to debunk the Bible and say, no, see, the area where they walked through the Red Sea wasn't the deepest part of the sea. It came only up to your ankles, and a wind came. It was very windy during that time in ancient Israel, where that was the time, or ancient Egypt, where that caused them to walk upon dry ground. They'll come up with a whole bunch of things. It says, for what if some did not believe, shall their unbelief, because a man or a woman or a people don't believe in the Bible, or don't believe in the history, or don't believe in the prophecy, shall their unbelief make the faith of God. The faith of God is the word of God, the truth of God, without effect, meaning as if it didn't happen or it will not happen in the future. It says, verse 4, God forbid. Everything that we've been reading throughout our existence during this generation, we've either been able to confirm it, and then we've seen prophecies as in our mind and are still happening right now, today, right? These things are still happening. So God said, God forbid, just because a person doesn't have a third eye or spiritual eyes, they call it, to see these things, like the Most High in Christ says throughout the Bible, he that have an ear, let him hear, right? You have an ear, born with ears. Normal man and woman is born with ears, but they're not spiritually listening. So God forbid. Yeah, let God be true. Let God's word stand, prove it, contend for it, fight for it. But every man a liar. Man's thoughts, right? Man's own words, or how they feel, their opinions, these are all lies. If it's not according to the faith of the Most High. It says, as is written, that's where we get our source from. That's where we get the information from the record, from the word, from the mouth of God. That thou mayest be justified in thy sayings and mightest overcome when thou art judged. So it's very important that we use the scriptures, because it's not us. This is not our word. This is the Most High's word. Christ even said that these are not my words, but the Father's. So we can't take ownership. We have to give the Most High's word as it was freely given to us. We have to now freely give it to everybody else, whether they hear or forbear. It still has to be projected and given and taught and preached throughout the four corners of the earth, like Christ or Yahweh said in the last chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, right? This had to be preached throughout every nation. Everybody had the Most High. All right, so that concludes the Sabbath service for today. Next week we'll be in, I think, is Acts, the 10th chapter. Acts 10 and 11 next week for the Sabbath service. And also, in about a week and a half, we'll be coming up on the memorial blowing of the trumpets for the new moon, which is September 16th. Right? September 16th, which is a Wednesday night, will be the memorial blowing of the trumpets, right? And then 10 days following that, on the 25th, will be the Day of Atonement. It's a Friday night for the Day of Atonement, where we're going to fast, right, according to the scriptures. And then 5 days after that will be the Feast of the Tabernacles, which is September 30th, right? So I'm giving a heads up about what's coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to be running into 3 high holy days back to back to back in 3 consecutive weeks in conjunction with the Sabbath service, right? And also keep in mind for the Feast of Tabernacles, right? On September 30th, Wednesday night, the Feast of Tabernacles, it is one of the major high holy days where we can't appear empty. So each household is required to give as they are able an offering. We've always set the offerings be $100 as a monetary offering donation. And if you cannot do that, give whatever you are able. If you go above that, that's on you. You go below that, that's on you. Give what you are able to give on that date, right? So again, Memorial blowing of the trumpets, September 16th. Day of Atonement, September 25th. Feast of the Tabernacles, September 30th. Right, all sundown. And on the September 30th Feast of Tabernacles, $100 offering or whatever you are able to provide. So I'm giving, time in advance for everyone to be prepared, sanctify themselves, get themselves ready for these upcoming high holy days. And then the closing of the Feast of the Tabernacles will be on October 7th, sundown. All right. So most high will, everybody got that information. Again, as always, if you had any questions or concerns or commentary that you wanted to bring out that we didn't get to bring out, discussions, please join into the classes every Tuesday and Friday. That's the telephone number along with the access code. And then also, if you want to make donations with tithes and offerings, make sure you make them payable to the school. Lord's will, somebody also can put in the chat room the if you need to make an online payment through PayPal, we have a PayPal account set up that also can be posted digitally online if anybody wants to do it that way outside of sending in a money order or check. All right. So with that, I'm going to say Shah Shabbat, happy Sabbath. I know we kind of ended a little bit earlier today. We'll be able to get out to camp a little bit earlier today. And most as well, everybody else has a fruitful and enjoyable Sabbath of Shabbat for the remaining of the day. All right, everyone stay tuned for the closing prayers. Shalom. All right. Somebody get the blinds. Sure. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Parya Hagapin, Thawada Amun, by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, or the Most High, in the name of Christ or Jesus Christ, that gives us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. A Madwa upon you on Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Mayaka Allah, Waha Allahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shema Ayam, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Waha Kazayat, Bunya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Rabiam, Da'aith, Rabiam, Bayana, Rabiam, Sabalanwa, Rabiam, Amawan, Rabiam, Aqua, Rabiam, Ahabiam, Rabiam, Haganah, Rachanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Kata Ayamnawa, Laha Akim, Wa Akiwath, Wa Yasha'Allah, from Yad, Wa Iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, for water, Aman. English translation. Most High, in the name of Christ, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers or angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters and Israel always and forever. In the name of Yahweh, I thank you, so be it. According to prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabatya Saparim, Shammai, Yashar Allah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Chad. English translation. Most High, in the name of Christ, bless us and Israel and the house of books or schools. And Deuteronomy 6:4, hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. Again, we say Ashar Shabbat, or happy Sabbath, and peace to the brothers and sisters. For those who dialed in late, probably missed it. You can log back on if you have access and review again. All right, that again, Shalom, peace.
Shalom. Shalom, Shabbat.
Shalom.